Hi, thank you for joining our presentation. I'm going to introduce Sticks, Ropes, Land, a project that came out of an ongoing research collaboration between Jean CHISHOLM, Charlotte FALK, and myself, Laura KOZAK. We are based in Vancouver, Canada, and affiliated with Carr University. Stewardship, incremental change, and place-based knowledge are defining values in our work. In the last year, we've collaborated with land trusts, municipalities, Indigenous social service organizations, and schools. Our work adapts approaches from architecture, urban design, and community engagement practices. A risk in participatory design is that it can tokenize participants' input, limiting the depth of information shared, leading to disconnected understandings of site, and perpetuating hierarchical structures between designers and communities. We see this dynamic as one of many consequences of colonial power structures and dispossession, which in Canada has broad implications for land use and what's determined to be public or private. A key focus of our research has been to recognize how the concept of public space is defined and upheld by colonial systems, both legal and cultural, and to reconsider this premise. Our project investigates strategies and methods for working with materials that reposition place-based knowledge holders or community stewards into the role of highly qualified leaders with deep understandings of localized needs, and shifts designers into modes of active listening and being led by. The work we're about to share took place in Prince George, a city of 78,000 people located in northwestern Canada. Prince George is the largest city in its region and is located on the traditional territory of the Lheidli T'enneh. Many of the conditions of this site are common to northern communities across Canada: a history of displacement, a concentration of social service organizations, and a boom-bust cycle of resource extraction industries.
Last year, our team hosted a series of workshops in Prince George that engaged local communities to use simple materials, things like strings, ropes, sticks, and plants, to generate site-specific responses to public spaces and to convey sophisticated place-based knowledge. Our first iteration of this approach was story ropes. Here, we wanted to explore methods that could meaningfully give agency to children, who are often left out of the public planning process. We invited 2 local classes of 10 to 12-year-old students to create walking sticks that were intended to help them share their own stories and help give them a better understanding of how to navigate public space. Using an assortment of rudimentary materials, each student picked a walking stick and decorated it in response to open-ended prompts. Some of these prompts lent themselves to tangible physical outcomes, like making a tool that will help them in their life right now. Other prompts lent them to more abstract thinking, and students used textures and colors to tell us stories about themselves, where they had been, and where they'd like to go. The students were highly engaged and enthusiastic to work with these materials, and as they began sharing the stories of their sticks, it became immediately clear that these bright young people had many insights to offer. The sticks provided a way for them to express their individual and collective relationship to the land and the built environment. After reflecting on the student stories, a growing concern emerged among us, the facilitators of the workshop. How do we avoid tokenizing students' voices and perspectives? And how do we compel institutions to meaningfully address the place-based rights of these students and not perpetuate existing power dynamics? Universalized approaches to participatory design and community consultation often rely on problem-solving tropes and extractive research methods, which perpetuate Eurocentric power structures and continue colonial acts of epistemological displacement and erasure. We are now exploring processes and partnerships in Prince George that support the unsettling of colonial practices in relation to the land and space and build collective responsibility and reciprocity.
We refined our approach for collaborating with local knowledge holders. Story ropes happened over a weekend with a group of 13 people, and everyone within the group knew at least one other person. The small scale and prior relationships were designed to increase space for openness and reciprocity. Our first evening together was spent eating, making, and conversing. We explained everyone would make a section of rope using rudimentary materials like string and leaves in response to a series of prompts. We presented the activity as low pressure and took part as well. This helped reduce the implicit hierarchy between facilitator and participant, giving way for greater epistemic and social equality. While making, we shared a meal, and the room quickly filled with laughter and banter. We then gathered in a circle to share the stories behind our ropes. We learned about each other's past, current practices, and hopes for the future. The openness and willingness of the group created a space where many felt safe to be vulnerable. The next morning, everyone was invited to pick a site of interest, care, or concern to form a guided walk through downtown Prince George. Together, we visited places of creativity, care, unseen potential, history, and grassroots efforts. Story Rope's acts of making, walking, and sharing generated new and impactful relationships and knowledge transfer. Sticks, Ropes, Land prototypes ways for community stewards to meaningfully contribute to the design of public space, particularly those who are often marginalized or tokenized by universalized participatory design processes. Through activities like Story Sticks and Story Ropes, we learned how contributions of place-based knowledge, shared through acts of making and storytelling, can enrich the efficacy of a design research process. A story shared by a local individual about seasonal weather or localized cultural habits might take ages to discover through typical community consultation methods. A kind of place-based accountability disappears when designers are distanced from the places and people they are intending to serve. By using processes rooted in, as Anishinaabe scholar Leanne Simpson calls, the hard work of being present, empathy and shared understandings are pollinated, inviting a pluralistic understanding of place. For discussion, how can we remain accountable when doing place-based work from afar?